Well, good afternoon. I think we're live, everyone. Welcome to the usual show. Well, it's not the usual show, actually. We normally come on yesterday. But I've had a day off yesterday, seeing it was Easter Friday here. Happy Easter for everyone around the world. Hope you're all staying safe. Looking forward to today's show. We are in pre-show. I'm going to give this a little bit of a while. Just let me start this timer as well. We are in pre-show at the moment. If you don't want to watch an individual story, or you can just skip down below, because I will have the timeline down below that you can go directly to if you don't want to watch certain stories. So let's find out who's here today. And we'll have a look. So let me see. Panda, g'day Panda. Watched a couple of your movies this morning, actually. Can I cover you and your new bride-to-be 7180 wedding? I'm not sure what that means, but yes, of course. MJ's here as well. I wonder what Kerry has to say. Photomia, what is Photomi Live is here? Have you changed your thing, Ike? Panda says, I bet Tamron isn't going to keep up with the demands of the lens. Probably not, and I'll talk about that once we all start the discussion today. This is going to talk a lot today about the 70 to 180, because I want to sort of talk about it as against the G Master and other things. So stay tuned for that, because there's been a couple of reviews that have come out that are really good that mention about that, so I'll talk about that as well. Panda says, Japan is in lockdown. I'm sure that factories are short on employees. Yep, I think that's going to be the same everywhere at the moment. We're all going to be under the same boat for the next 12 months, I would say. MJ says, I think it will be back ordered for much longer than the 28 to 75. Interesting you say that, MJ. I'm not sure if it will be as bad as the 28 to 75. It may be because of the lockdown, but I think Tamron have improved their manufacturing processes since then. But I do think if you want to get it early, you have to pre-order it. And I think that's definitely going to be the case. Mirrorless NY said, but also not as many people will be buying it now. And that's another point too. I mean, how many people actually have the money at the moment? A lot of people in the US may use that stimulus check that they're getting early in the middle of this month, I think. They may use that to get in it, because it's actually, I think, about the exact right amount. So some may use it for that. It just depends, I suppose, how much cash you've got lying around at the moment, or if you want to purchase it straight away. So yeah, it will be interesting to see, that's for sure. Hogarth says, Hogarth, I think it's pronounced. Hi everyone, greetings from Cambridge, Ontario. I hope it's is it Hogarth? I'm just going to make sure I say it. G'day Jerry, how are you? We're going to draw that competition today too, Jerry, so I'll talk about that soon. Casper said 5 weeks still clearing the lungs. Casper said, stay safe and only buy G Master lenses. I love it. G'day, Jim. Greetings from Minnesota, USA, where we had a snow blizzard yesterday. It's pretty cool here today, too. That's why I'm not drinking a Corona today. We're only 13 degrees Celsius at the moment today. I think it's only going to be a top of 15. So what's that? It's about 65, 66. It's quite cold today. It warms up again, I think tomorrow and the next day it starts to warm up again in the mid-20s here. So, but today is quite cold. Yesterday was gorgeous here though. Remember, we are heading into winter now here in Melbourne. Casper said, all lenses and cameras come with the sprinkling of the CCP virus by USA Goods. I love it. Not much snow, just white out. Some left in the shady areas today. Chris was here, took his message off. Hero said, notification, gang, 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 gang. Oh, I love it. The black hole. I need to turn the black hole on. Hang on. The black hole is officially on. Here we go. There's the black hole. It's on. I love it. Mirrorless NY said, hello NUC. Hope you guys in New York City are staying safe. Nivak said, good morning, David. David said, hello, David. Hi, David. John said, hi, David. Lewis said, hi. Rains, I think it's pronounced, is it? Hi from Colorado. Victor said, hi to all. Chris, hello, David. Another rainy day in Los Angeles having a Bud Lime. Yum. Like I said, it's a bit cool for me. Kerry's going to bring me in a coffee in a minute, actually, so I'm going to have coffee today. I get into the winter side of things and then I stop drinking the Coronas for a while. But I'll be back up doing it in spring, that's for sure. Casper said, glad you're negative for C. Yes, I was negative, so that was fantastic. I've still got that little bit of cough there, but it's much better actually than what it was though. Lewis said, greetings from Portugal. Here the Tamron is listed at €14.99. Look, I know a lot of Europeans I think are particularly disappointed, but I suppose the thing you got to take into consideration, well, here it's around 2,400. You have to take into account the Japanese yen at the moment is quite strong. So that's an interesting thing as well that you've got to account for, that the Japanese yen has improved a lot. We're all paying for that, I suppose. And our dollar in Australia sucks, probably like what you guys are finding over there as well. But it's still way cheaper than the G Master. So that's what you've got to understand too. You're going to find that the Sony gear, no doubt, will go up in price due to the yen and everything as well in the coming weeks. So it's something you've got to think about as well. David said, David, did you get to try the 7180 on the A6400 for weight and balance? I just tried it, David. I was really stuck for time, so I had to try and get it done in the 2 days because I had to pass it on to another reviewer. They've only got 2 in the country, I believe. At that time, they only had 1. I think I got the first review out, or the first real review out that showed it being in use. There was a review just before me, but I don't think it really showed much at that stage. So I only had a chance to just try it, and it felt fine. I mean, the interesting thing is, that the Tamron lenses really are nice and light. I mean, even though it's a reasonable size lens, the 70-180, it still works quite well with APS-C due to the fact of, how small the lenses are compared to the G Masters. I mean, G Master lenses particularly wouldn't fit. They'd go on, and I'm going to talk about that later on as another story, but, they won't, they just aren't a good fit for the size, whereas the Tamron lenses are a pretty good fit, and yes, it's quite usable. Kevin said, where were we? We're still in pre-show too, guys, by the way. Kevin said, hey David, I hope Tamron makes a 100-400. I'll be more interested in that. Love my 70-200 f4. I'm definitely going to sell my 70-200 f4. I can tell you that now, that I will be selling that sometime when things pick up. I'm just not buying anything for the foreseeable future. Because who knows, even once this is over, the first stage, we may get a second stage. So I'm just not going to buy anything in the foreseeable future, probably for this year. But I definitely will be selling my 70-200 f4 once things settle down. And I'll be getting the Tamron as soon as I can get it. But yes, look, I've got no doubt that Tamron will be releasing other lenses soon. I mean, it won't surprise me 100-400. It won't surprise me if they release anything, like a really, really fast prime as well. Wide angle would be great too. Like I said, the 35 Tamron lens was the best 35 I'd ever used. I hadn't used the Sigma one at that stage. I think the Sigma is also very, very good. I'd love to compare those two side by side, the Sigma 35 1.4 against the Tamron 35 1.4, because that Tamron was something really special. And the Sigma 35 is 1.2. I'd love to test that against each other. It would be amazing. Rick saying hello as well. Steve saying greetings. Guy with the camera saying hello all. Jim saying hi. Carol saying hello everyone. Hi Carol. Jim saying hi to everyone. Thumbs up please. Yes, please give thumbs up because it does mean the show gets passed around. So I'd love it if you could do that if you could. Carl says he's radioactive. I love it. 0007 says, I thought camera equipment was supposed to drop in price. Sony has gone up. Yeah, I think the dollar's really played a havoc with it, 000. That's the issue. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the coming months, though. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, to be completely honest, if If you wait a little while with the Tamron, I would think that the price will drop in the coming weeks, months. It may not be weeks, but in the coming months anyway. It always seems to have done that. So if you don't want to get it in the first round, you probably will find that, you know, it's going to come down in price over a period of time anyway. I mean, like I said, it's 2,400 here in Australia at the moment. I could almost bet that by December here, Christmas time, it probably will be 1,900. So it just depends with how soon you want to get these things. I mean, that may not happen, but it's just what I'm sort of thinking may happen. John said, good idea to use the stimulus. I'm a truck driver, so I haven't slowed down. I'm essential. That's great, John. Ahau says 16C, 61 Fahrenheit. Yeah, it's cold today. Jim said 65 or 66 Fahrenheit. We stripped to Speedos. I love it. That's funny. Rick said, I hope it makes the used Sony 70-200 f4 cheaper. Well, it will, Rick. That's why I'm just... Look, I'm going to have to see what I do about the 70-200 f4, how much it's actually worth me selling for. If I'm not going to get back enough for it, I might keep it as a second lens. But I'm definitely going to get the 70-180, I can tell you that now. Even if Sigma come out with, and I'm sure they will, even if Sigma come out with an amazing 70-200, I probably will still get the Tamron due to its weight. I just love the feel of that lens and the weight and everything. It's so good for me to use as a wedding photographer, whereas the Sigma lens is probably going to be heavier than the GM version. So yeah, I'm still going to pick it up. But if the dollar... If I just can't get back enough to sell it, because that's a great lens, if I just can't get back enough to sell it, I will keep it, and I'll just keep it as a second lens. But that's down the track for me now. It's actually raining outside. I can hear it now. What else? Where are we? Read that bit. Hope it makes cheapo. Gerald said we had 95 degrees Fahrenheit in Texas a few days ago. Yep, it'll be heating up for you, Jerry. We're cooling down here. Made it just in time, David. Good to see you here, Dave. Even said, hello, David. Happy Easter. Same to you. Happy Easter to everyone. Casper said, I'm going to donate my check to the people affected by the China virus. Oh, that is amazing, Casper. Mirrorless MI said, have you heard of Tamron 70-130 f2? Yes, I discussed that in last week's live, actually. That's probably going to be a great lens. I'd prefer the 180. Look, I've already got the 135 Sony G Master lens. So for me, that 70-130 f2, look, I shouldn't say it won't interest me as much, because I'll get to try it for you guys and I'll be able to review it. It may be an unbelievable lens at f2, so that could be a really interesting lens. But seeing I've already got the G Master 135 f 1.8, and then I will have the 70-180. I may not get the 70-130, but when I say that, I might try that lens and it might be incredible being f2, but it's going to be a lot bigger. That's something you've got to understand about that. The Tamron 70-180 was 1,899 Canadian when I ordered it yesterday. Yeah, it's a bit dearer here in Australia. The Australian dollar sucks at the moment. Will not trade my Sony 100-400, even if Tamron comes with one. It's dead sharp. Yeah, it is. That's a great lens at that 100-400, that's for sure. Dad said, morning, David. Alex said, hi. Hero said, hope the next Tamron is a 150-600. Well, that would be amazing. So that could be, Hero. Can't wait for the Tamron 102-398. MJ's just saying laugh out loud. That's why I smiled. Where were we? Do you think the Tamron, do you think the Unicorn A7000 will ever exist? Yeah, I do. Look, I don't know if it'll be called an A7000, but I still do believe that it's possible that Sony could bring out a mirrorless camera in, not the A9 body, but you know, they may bring it out into this sort of type body, which the A7 series body. I mean, if they're going to run it with 4K 60, I doubt whether they'll be probably able to do it in the smaller body anyway. So I think they're going to have to move up to this. So whatever that's called, I'm not sure, but I do believe there's something probably down the track for that, yes. Roberto says, hi, David from quarantined Italy. Hi, Roberto. Well, we're quarantined here. We can still go for walks, though, but you know, we're not meant to drive anywhere or anything like that, so we are in lockdown here as well. We're very fortunate in Australia, though, that the numbers are so low. I think we've got 5,000 cases for the whole of Australia, so... and they do say, I heard on the news this morning, that they think they'll be able to eliminate it very soon, so it's looking pretty good here. Tasm says, I think the Sigma 70-200 will only cost $1,299. Interesting. You could get 1,000 easy for the 70-200 f4 if you sell ASAP. Yeah, that's what I've got to think about, Hero. I'm just not sure with everything on lockdown at the moment, though, how I'll go about doing it. Because I usually, whenever I sell anything, I usually sell it for cash, because I just hate the scams that you can get if you sell things on eBay and other sites. I'll have a think about it, though, because I definitely do want to sell it. I just got here, start over. We're only going through the pre-show, Basil. Langston's here as well. G'day, Langston. MJ said 35 degrees Fahrenheit in lovely Michigan. Wow, that's cold. we would be absolutely, every Australian would be dying if it was that sort of temperature here. We're a bit wimpy on the cold side of things. Oh, thank you, my darling. Kerry's bringing me in a lovely coffee. Okay. Ooh, thank you.
It's hot.
Just say quickly hi.
Hello. Doing my housework. Having fun.
See ya.
See ya. I'll come out with those names.
Okay, yeah, Kerry's going to bring out the names for that competition. I'll explain a little bit about it later, so she'll bring that out shortly.
Half an hour?
Yeah, half an hour, hun. That'd be good. Late Double Shot says, hello, David. Does the new Tamron 70 work with the teleconverter? No, it doesn't. It doesn't work with any of the teleconverters, so that can be an issue. So if you are thinking about getting, if you're, say, into sports or if you're into wildlife and you need that reach, you need that 1.4 or 2 times extender, you're going to have to get the Sony lenses, because it's the only ones that will work with those adapters. So, yes, it won't work at all. Dan said, don't talk about losing money. I bought a Holden and they crashed. Laugh out loud. I love it. Yeah, because Holden have just stopped producing cars here. Holden are like your GM over there. Evan says you order one. Oh, that's something else. They're talking to each other. I'm just trying to skip down here because I want to start the show, because there's stacks I want to take you through about the Tamron today. I sell a lot of camera stuff on Facebook. Yeah, that's where I'll be selling it to, Hero, if I'm doing it. How long is your lockdown, John said? Well, we were told the other day it could be 6 months. It depends. Look, in Australia, John, we're very, very lucky. We've got one of the fewest amounts of cases in the world here, and I think that's because we're an island. And you've got to remember that we're only 25 million people or something, which I think we only have one person per 3 kilometres. Whereas I think they mentioned Italy was 200 per every kilometre. Here we had 1 per every 3 kilometres. So in Australia we have very, very few people. So we're all spread out, very, very far apart. Like no one lives close together like you would in Italy and, say, Paris or, areas like that, Spain. So we're very, very lucky in that regard that everyone does have so much space here in Australia. And I think because we're an island and they locked it down straight away, that all the virus cases were really held in. Like I said, we have 5,000 cases and I think we've had 50 deaths, which is terrible. I mean, even 1 death is terrible, but compared to what you guys in the US and Europe are facing at the moment, Australia really has been very, very lucky. But our Prime Minister did say to us the other day that our lockdown could be for 6 months. But what I think may happen is we might get to the point where here in Australia they'll open up for internal travel, because at the moment all travel is stopped. They might open it up for once it's under complete control, and the numbers are dropping. Like I think we only had 13 cases new yesterday. I think what you'll find is they'll stop. They'll allow all internal travel, but all external international travel will be stopped for up to 12 months. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Let me just have a look. So I may sell my... I usually do sell it on Facebook. I use something called Gumtree, but I only ever do it for cash. Jim said, hi, Kerry. Love your photo shoot. Thanks. I'm going to show the images I got of Kerry first, just in case if people haven't seen those. She seems a most lovable wife. She is. She's amazing, Rick. My wife ambushes me at the sight of B&H boxes. So does Kerry. I get the rolling of the eyes. Langston said, oh, wow, I didn't realise it was that spacious. Yeah, it's massive, Langston. Australia is a huge country. Guy with the camera said, how do you sell on Facebook? Is there a group? Yeah, there is. There's Sony groups that you can sell. There's buy, swap and sell groups that you can do. Langston, the size of Australia, if you take out Alaska, Australia is the size of the whole continental United States. And we have 25 million people. So it's huge with very few people. Like I said, we only have one person every 3 kilometres. And that's about it. Lewis, before I start the show, said, good think of buying the Tamron 7180 is that I can always say it's the same as the 2875. She knows nothing about lenses. I love it because it looks the same. I know, I love it. Yeah, you would be able to get away with that. That's quite funny. And here I said Facebook has its own marketplace. Yes, it certainly does. All right, so let me put down here. I'm going to put show start 21 10. So let's bring up the show.
If you're looking for some crazy, I'll tell you everybody's standing in a line for the water slide. You can come on over, we can take the roller coaster. And you know everybody's looking for a ride in the water slide. Water slide.
Well, welcome everyone back for, well, not our usual show because it's normally would have been done yesterday. But because I got held up with the Tamron review, we had to move the show I do with Aaron to a day later. And then I thought, well, seeing that it was Good Friday yesterday for me, I'd spend the day with Kerry, and then I thought, well, I'll do a live today. So that's how it's worked. But anyway, we've got some interesting things to discuss today. This is going to be a very Tamron 70 to 180 centric show because I wanted to talk to you about my findings with that, and we can discuss it where we're live and you can ask questions and things like that. So we'll go through a few things about it, and I'll break down the video that I did. I've got that so I can sort of just bring it onto the desktop and I can stop it, show you some things, discuss what I found with my findings and stuff like that. But also we could discuss how it compares to the 70 to 200 GM, because there's now been a really good review on Sony Alpha Blog about that. I will put all the links down below at the end of this. So I thought that we could do that today. And really break this down and talk about it. And we've got a couple of other stories as well with the Sony firmware with the A9, and also a story about the Sony mount size, which has come up again, and I thought we could have that as a discussion. So we've got some really interesting things to discuss today, but I thought we'd start out today talking about my review that I did with the Tamron. I did have it for 2 days, so I got a really good feel with it. And I had to use Kerry, my wife, because due to the lockdown, I couldn't really ask a model to come out because we're not meant to do that. So you have to stay within your family. So I used Kerry. So I thought what we'd do is start with that. But let me just put down the time that we're starting on this. 23. And all I'm going to do to start with is show you the slideshow that I did with Kerry first. So what we'll do is we'll look at that. And we'll see how that goes. So let me just turn up the volume. I'll try and see if I can play it with the audio.
Give me your strength and show me your weakness. falling down, even if we're falling down, all of me is yours, every part of me. 'Cause we're in this together now, you and me together now. What's the point of living if we're scared to lose each other? What's the point of living without you? Tell me now and I'll stop fighting. Tell me now and I'll stop breathing. I don't want to be here without you. Without you. Without you. Without you. Without you.
So let me know what you thought about it. So that's just to give you a brief look at the images that I took on the day. I'm really happy with the rendering of those images. Like I said, Kerry was a bit intimidated, but I think she did a great job considering that, you know, she's not a model, but she was fantastic on the day, and I just loved working with her. We had a ball, actually. So let me just pause this for a second. So there's some things that I wanted to break down with you about the review, and then we'll talk about, once we've gone through what I sort of found with against the 70-200 f4 and how the lens performed, I thought then we could talk about how it compares to the G Master, because there has been another lens review, a really good detailed lens review that's come out comparing it to that, and then you could sort of make your decision based on that. Let me just see what people are saying in the chat before we go into breaking this down, because I've got some really interesting things that I thought I'd mention to you that I didn't mention much in the review either. So let me just see back to here. Guy with the camera said, Australia has the trains though. That's likely where you get a lot of the infections. Yeah, it might be. Good. Lewis said, good. Think of buying the. He's thinking about buying the 70 to 180. Is that you can always. He's talking about. His wife wouldn't know the difference between the 28 to 75 and the 70 to 200. I love that. That's a classic. Most of it is desert, David. Yeah, it is. A lot of our country is desert. That's true. Langston said, Jeebus, wow, some new perspective. Guy with the camera said, laugh out loud, same with my Sony bodies, as long as I only show it the one time, my wife never knows the difference. You guys are shocking. I love it though. Langston says, I sell face-to-face, only maybe one exception on location, which is always a police station. Oh, okay, yeah, you're talking about selling, yeah. That's where you got to be careful, you know, that there's so many scammers out there that, like, I'm talking about selling my 70 to 200 f4 guys, if you're popping in late, that I usually only like to sell for cash. Evan said he's skeptic about pre-ordering with Henry's. I've had an issue in the past with pre-orders. For some reason, they are always way behind. Oh, interesting. Evan said it took almost 2 months to get the 22.8 after the release date. Wow. Where are they from? Where's Henry's? Basil said, I like to think that David's singing. Langston said, because I live in LA and I trust nobody, I love it. Image over Australia over the USA. Oh, let me check this out. Open a new window. Oh, there you go. Let me just show this. I'll have to go here, I think. Let me make that a bit smaller. Yep, so it shows you the size of Australia, which is interesting if you look at it from the size of that. I suppose that there is the Canadian border, is it? Oh, yeah, Canada. And obviously you've got Mexico that's down through here. So this will show you the size of Australia. Tasmania is also part of Australia through here. So it does show you the size of what Australia is with only 24 million people. So it gives you an idea about our size. So that's good. Thanks for that, Jim. That was a good thing to show. Let me just go back to here. Let me move this over so I'm ready for when we do this later. All right, so let me go back to questions. Where were we? Oops, let me come back up a bit. Some very good photos there. Thank you so much, Mike. Hero said, awesome. That lens is legit. I agree. I think the lens is legit. That lens is very sharp. It's very sharp, Altric, and I'll talk about that in a minute because I'm going to break this down for you. Looks like a winner. Sigmas will be heavier, and that's something you do also have to understand. The thing I love about the Tamron is it's a very, very light lens compared to, say, what the G Master version will be. It's a little bit lighter than the Sony 70-200 f4, but it's way lighter than the GM version, and it will be way lighter than the Sigma, that's for sure. So if that's something that matters to you, and I'll talk about the cons and everything later on, so we'll discuss that as well. Kevin said, great shot. Thanks, Kevin. What is the cost in Australia? It's 2,400. So, boy, do we get hit hard here. The Aussie dollar sucks at the moment. Altric says, tell Kerry she's butter in those images. Thanks. I've been walking around telling her that she's changed since she's been in the video because she's become a model. Oh, I love it. Ray said she did a great job. Yes, she did, considering. Guy with the camera said, same here, A7 III and the A7R III. Wife cannot tell the difference. You guys, I love it. Rick says, I'm eager to see what the 20mm difference is between the lens and the 180. I'm going to talk about that, Rick. I'm going to show that. I've got a list down here, and I'm going to show that exact thing so you'll be able to see that, me talking about it. Dan, how can Tamron build a lens with 90% of the capacity of a G Master that is so light? I don't know. It's incredible when you think how they've done it. I suppose it's because it's got that 67mm filter thread as well, which is amazing, really. Oh, Henry's is in Canada. Okay. Gerald said, I own the 70-200 GM, and I still think the Tamron is a winner, also a game changer in this zoom range. I agree with you, Jerry. Cut off 20mm at the end. Yep, I'll actually show the image so you can have a look at that. How much longer until they are available to the public? Well, I know here in Australia it's mid-May. I've heard in Europe it's meant to be the end of April. So it depends on where you are, I think. I'm not sure about the US though. Gerald says he owns a 70-200 GM. Trevor said 135 1.8 or the 70-100 for portraits. If I could only have one of those, I would still get the 135 because I adore that lens so much. If I'm talking portraits, but if I was working in weddings, I would get the Tamron 70-180 in a heartbeat because I need the ability to have that different focal length. Like I said, Kerry, usually the way I work, my cameras that I use in the weddings, I'll carry the 24 GM and the 135. They're the two lenses and the 85 Batis. That's usually what I will grab, are those three lenses. Kerry will nearly always have the Tamron 28-75 and the 70-200 f4, whereas now she would have the 70-180 Tamron lens. So it's great to have that whole focal range. So it really just depends on how you like to shoot. But you know, the interesting thing is that the money you save, if you were going to buy the GM particularly, the money that you save by not buying the GM 70-200, you can then go out and buy a really good prime. So that's another thing that you'd have to think about as well. And I'll talk about cost a little bit later. But the 135 is still my favourite portrait lens. I don't think the 20mm is a deal breaker. It's not much at all, and I'll show you that, Altric. I'll show you the exact amount. Cameron said I might be able to take out the 85 and the 135. You could. I mean, that's the thing. But I was surprised, to be completely honest with you. I was surprised how sharp and how beautiful the lens looked. That Tamron. I wish I had more time, because I will get it back. I mean, I've just got to wait for other reviewers to use it, and then I'd love to test it at 135 against the 135 GM. I'd love to have that ability, but remember the GM's 85, so it is a 1.8. I mean, so that's a big factor as well. So if you really wanted to blow that background away, it's amazing. But then if you go up to 130, if you go up to the 180 mil focal length, the background is gone anyway, and you'll see that when we start to look at those images. The background is lovely and smooth, I think. The close focusing is also amazing on that lens. So there are some really great features about it. I wish I had it for a little bit longer, that I could have tested it against the 135 GM. When I get it back, I'll definitely do that for you. Adam said, oh my God, yep, 2,400. Yeah, but you've got to remember the GM here is 3.5. So it's $1,000 difference, Adam. And that's at current prices. You've got to remember that in Australia at the moment, the GM, the prices haven't gone up due to the yen. But you will find everyone's now advertising in camera shops that prices are going to go up in the coming days due to the dollar difference. So I wouldn't be surprised if the GM goes up way more because of what's happened to the dollar than what it is now at 3,500. So you might find that the difference then becomes $1,500. So that's at today's dollar. The difference is 1,000, I think. It was 1,100, I think. But you might find in the coming days the difference will jump up to 1,400, 1,500, because the G Master lenses will go up once the dollar devaluation comes into it. Carol said, after seeing your images, I'm highly considering getting the Tamron 7180. It's certainly well worth it, Carol, particularly for the guys in the US, because it's a really good price for you guys over there. Kerry did a great job and love those boots. Yeah, the boots were really cute. David's, when's your birthday? June is my birthday, June the 27th. Cameron said 20mm difference isn't much, especially with the A7R series. You can crop, exactly. Does it manage 20 frames per second? No, you get 15. So that's if you need 20 frames per second, you need to get the GM lenses, and I believe the 1.8 85 does 20, and also the 20mm, the new Sony 20mm 1.8 also does 20. So you need to have Sony glass, but for instance, the Sony F4 doesn't do 20 either. That only does 15 as well. So it matches what the F4 version has. So you're going to get 15, but you won't get 20. You will get 20 if you use manual focus, though. I'm sure of that, because you do even with the other lenses. AJ said, I like Jared Poland's idea to cut the 20mm off the short end at 90 to 200. I prefer it the other way, because I prefer the 70mm. I prefer to keep that than have 200. And I'll show you why in a minute. For me, it's always better to be able to get a little bit wider, I've found, because that's where you usually have trouble, is to get wide enough. And, then you have to switch lenses. So for me personally, I prefer to keep it at 70 and have that focal range than have it at the long end. But remember, that's the way I shoot. If you're a sports shooter, I can completely understand it. Or if you're shooting animals, I can understand it. But the difference isn't much at all. And I'll show you that in a couple of minutes. Derek said, hey David, you were really surprised. I think Tamron shooters were really expecting the quality of this lens and would have been disappointed for anything else. I would have been disappointed, but I was surprised how sharp it was though, Derek. That's why I'm saying I was really surprised. I love the Tamron 28 to 75, but this is in a league above that. It is way sharper than what the other Tamron lenses are out there, the zoom lenses I'm talking about. Not the primes are incredibly sharp. Like even the 20, the 35, those lenses are unbelievably sharp. Recently I posted about they were able to resolve the A7R4 and they're super sharp. Those lenses are amazing. But for a zoom lens, I think the 70 to 180 is by far the sharpest Tamron lens, zoom lens that I've used. Is it more of a reason to pre-order now? Maybe, Cameron, because it may go up. That's an interesting thing. It's hard to know what may happen, but if you want it, all I can say is I've been told that they are going to be hard to get. I don't know whether that's true or not. It depends how many people pre-order it, I suppose. But I was told that if you did want to get it at the as it ships, you should pre-order due to limited numbers. But I mean, who knows? You might find that I think the 17 to 28 wasn't hard to get. So it's a hard decision to know what to do. And with the virus that's out at the moment, how many people are going to have the money? How long is a piece of string? It's a tough thing to say. AJ said, David, the 85 1.8, it does only get 15, does it? Okay. But maybe the 85 1.4 does. It could be that one. I thought the 85 1.8 did, but it might just be the GM one. The 90 to 200 is only an issue if it's paired with the 2470 or similar. It isn't a factor if it's paired with the 24105. Very poor timing for Tamron to release this during a pandemic. They should have waited to stock up on their supplies. I suppose it was ready to go though. Inc. I mean, it's if they're ready to go and it's there, people may take advantage of it. It's interesting. Hero says if you don't pre-order, you might have to wait. You might have to wait 12 months. Who knows? It took me 12 months to get the 28 to 75, apart from the ones that I'd had from Tamron. So it took me 12 months to show that as well. I'm just laughing at Alexander there said the Australian dollar is SHing bricks. I'd order now. Exactly, it is. It's terrible. The Australian dollar sucks at the moment. Matt said, did the 28 to 75 go up in price once people started saying it was a much greater lens? I don't think it went up in price, but it was just incredibly hard to get though. Dan said, just a small piece of info for our overseas viewers. Australia's medium house price in 2019 is $809,000. The US is $513. Yeah, our house prices are really expensive over here. All right, so let's now. I thought what we'd do is I'm going to show you. I'm going to break down to start with the video that I did, and I'll show you some important parts because I want to talk to you about things like focus. I want to talk to you about video autofocus because I had a couple of comments about that. I want to talk to you about the T-stop, and I think that's one of the biggest selling factors about this lens that really not many people are mentioning. So I thought that I'd talk about the T-stop of the lens for you as well. The loss of the 20mm at the long end, I talked to you about that, and sharpness and things like that as well. So let's start first to talk about focus. So let me just bring this up to where we're doing the focus so you can see how this thing is focusing. I'm just going to come up to the video. Where did that go? Have I lost that now? Oh no, there we are. Oh, it's because I moved it. Let me move it out. Oh no, I'll keep it up here. Oh no, I'll move it back. And then I've just got to move this out of the way. Where are we? I think the screen capture's changed. Let me just see if I can drag this over. I'll drag it over here. Okay, so let me just make it a bit smaller. Just so we can see the whole thing. All right, so with this, I'll just bring this down so you can also see the shutter speeds and stuff that we're dealing with here. So this was shot, just to show you this was shot with the A9. Now, I could have used, and this is why I want to get it back too, because I'd like to have used real-time tracking, but I didn't because I wanted to have a look and see how the autofocus was in the normal focus modes, and that will give you an idea too about how it would work with an A7 III, because you haven't got the real-time tracking in the A7 III. So I thought I'd keep it just with its normal wide area autofocus, and then I could sort of show you what was sort of going on with it here. So if we look at the tracking here, you'll notice that once I press down the button, and it will show the focus will start to activate in a second there. So you can see it's now starting to grab Kerry in that regard. And I found that it was incredibly, like, really fast. It was certainly faster than what I'd seen with something like the 28-75, and the 28-75 also I've found is quite sharp anyway. Here I wanted to try AAF, and it's interesting, IAF even worked with the glasses there, and that I thought, wow, that was good at that focal length. But I asked Kerry to take her glasses off here because I wanted to try and see how the IAF worked from a fair distance away. I mean, then I just asked her to move around. Now, someone said to me that it looked like it was a fraction behind, but all the images were in focus. So it wasn't. It kept up really, really well here. Super fast. And I found it was probably up there with... It wasn't like as fast as my 135 GM, because I don't think anything I've had is as quick as that. But the focus certainly was super fast, and you can see here Kerry's starting to walk towards me, and all those images were spot on. Like, I didn't have an issue at all with that, and it worked very, very quickly. You can see the second she turns around, if I press the shutter, immediately you can see how fast that switched in. Let me just switch this back again here, because I'll just find that spot for you again where she walked, and then it's back a bit further actually, I think. Yeah, it'll be here. So, like I said, it goes out of focus because I'm not pressing focus here. I press the button and it's bang. It was instant. So it shows you how quick the focus acquisition is in this. It is super quick. I wanted to try then Kerry walking towards me, quite fast. And she is walking quite fast here. You can't see it because it's stopping because I'm taking the shots. But she was actually walking really quite fast. Now, this is way faster than what someone would walk if they're in a wedding or something like that. And so for normal usage and stuff like that, you can see here if I press the focus here how quick this will go in. I press it there, bang. It's instant. It is super fast. How quickly that this can come in, and you can see the rendering there as well. It looked really good. So here I wanted to try with Kerry moving. I think this is where we went from side to side, so I could try her moving back. You can keep asking questions, guys, because I will come back and ask these questions. Again, you can see here that this is video. Now, I wanted to talk about this, so let me stop this because someone did say that they thought it was slow, but I wanted to mention this. I think this is a deliberate thing that Tamron have done here. Let me just stop this and explain something. With video autofocus, you don't want something to rack into focus as quick as what I showed you with the still, because it looks odd. What you tend to do, what videographers tend to do, is they'll rack focus, and they'll rack focus in fairly smoothly. They won't just go bang, bang. I think they probably could do this on this lens if they wanted to. But the thing you don't want to do is you don't want it to say grab focus or rack in and then bounce to try and get focus and then stop, or bring in focus too quick, because it's distracting on the eye, and it looks like it's like a camcorder or like an iPhone. It's not something that you really want to have done. You want a smooth transition between the background to the foreground. Now, I found that the way that this worked was really pleasant, because it did give a smooth transition between being in focus and out of focus, and you can see that when you look at it. Watch how it smoothly comes into focus. But the telling thing is that when Kerry walks towards me a little bit later on, that the focus follows her right the way in and doesn't lose it at all. So I'll show you what I mean here. So I'll press play again. So now she'll move away the screen really quickly, and I asked her to do this deliberately because I wanted to see what the transition was like between Kerry being in focus and the background. So when she switches off the screen, you can see it takes a second, but then did you notice how it came back in smooth? Watch now, it comes in really smooth, and it's actually really pleasant for video. And I think some people were missing that aspect of it, that it's not racking, it's not sort of going past that point and then coming back in. It's almost like you're pulling focus on this, and I think it's a really beautiful focus mechanism for doing this. Now you'll notice as she turns around, it's going to grab her face straight away. And this is how fast the face detection, look, bang, it grabbed her face immediately. And as she starts to walk towards me, you'll see it'll keep focus the whole time. Now, you're not noticing at this stage, but wait till she starts to move towards me. you'll see now that it's very smooth. Look at the background going out. Again, I moved in closer now. Watch the background go out of focus as she moves in, but she's staying rock solid here. You can see there, look at that. The background has gone completely out and Kerry stayed dead in focus. So the focus has worked magnificently in that regards, I think, for video. I do want to, like I said, I do want to get it back and test it fully for video. I just didn't have enough time to do that in the time that I had it. But like Langston said, very true, David, smooth focus transitions are the key. And that is the key. You do not want it to go bang, bang. If it goes bang, bang, it looks awful in video. So I think Tamron have done an amazing job here because they've given you super fast focus with the still side, and I showed you that there. I'm not hiding anything. I showed that there. And then you saw how when it went to video that it then became that smooth transition which looked beautiful. And I'd have, doing that test, I'd have complete confidence in having a bride walking down the aisle with autofocus, and it was going to track her face the whole time that she'd be walking down the aisle. And that for me is very, very important. And you saw that beautiful transition from the smooth background to going out in the background. And I think that's something that you've got to understand about how they've done this. That I think the focus is they've really nailed the focus in both regards, in the video and the stills. And it certainly didn't lose Kerry in focus coming towards me the whole time. Like, it didn't drift at all. And I thought that was, you know, a really, really great feature. I'm going to keep going because then I'm going to come back and I'll go through all these questions before we start going through the 70 to 200 differences, the G Master differences. So let's now look at the T-stop, because I think this is one of the most underrated features about this lens. Let me just go to here. Where are we? All right, so let me show this. So let me just press play for a second. Now, what I did here, I wanted to do a test to see. I wasn't testing the T-stop here actually, and I just noticed it after I'd done this test. But I wanted to test this to see how, if it really was 180mm at the long end. So what I did was I put on the camera on the tripod, and Susie, as you know, is a full-size model that I use. What I wanted to do was test the Sony 170 to 200mm at 180 to see what image size that gave me. And then I tried to put change the lenses and take the same shot again. And this proved to me that they were basically exactly the same. So the 180 is basically exactly the same on both lenses from the test that I did. And I put it into Photoshop in a minute, and I'll show you that in a second. I put it onto Photoshop and I laid one on top of the other, and to see if they were exactly the same. And in fact, the Tamron was just a fraction larger than what the Sony was. So the 180 is 180 according to both lenses. So a lot of people wanted to know that. Is it a real 180? Well, I could say yes, it seems to be, looking at the test that I just did. And in fact, Dustin Abbott, I saw he did a review the other day, and he put out some, because Dustin's very detailed, he put out some mathematic figures, and he believes that the focus breathing is not going to be an issue on the lens at all, or it should be minimal, due to the fact of the numbers that he calculated. You'd have to watch Dustin's video. But let me just move this forward a little bit, because I wanted to show you where I put them over the top in Photoshop. Now, what I wanted to show you here was this difference. Actually, I can show you on the other one, because I think it might stand out a little bit more here. No, it's quicker there, I think. Where are we? All right, so let me just show you this. Now, you'll notice that when I play this, you watch what happens. One image is definitely brighter than the other. Now, they're on layers, and I'm switching between layers here. Do you notice how much brighter one is? The brighter one is the Tamron. And look what's happening. If you look over here, let me just bring this back again. Look what's happening to the histogram over here. Look how much that varies between the two shots. Now, they were both on exactly the same settings. I think they were on 1/25th of a second, both on f4, the same ISO. So they were on exactly the same camera settings. But it looks like the T-stop of the Tamron lens is quite maybe quarter to half a stop better. Now, that could be the difference of, say, having to use flash or not having to use flash. Or if you're in video, it's definitely letting in more light, which means you might be able to use less ISO. I know it's not a lot, but it's definitely there. I tested this myself on a number of apertures, and it was the same the whole way through. So it would be interesting to have the G Master to compare it to the G Master lens. But I did read somewhere that someone mentioned that it was about a fifth of a stop or something, or a half of a stop. Somewhere else mentioned it against the G Master. I did see that review somewhere else as well. So it looks like the Tamron has a very, very good T-stop in the lens. And I showed that exactly there. Like I said, when you look at that image flickering between the two, it is quite drastic, particularly if you look at the histogram that you can see at the top right-hand side there. So I think this is a really... it hasn't been mentioned enough, I don't think, that the T-stop is so good in the Tamron. It's way better than what this Sony f4 version particularly is. Remember, there's two ways of looking at this. We talk in f-stops, like we always say f1.8 or f1.2 or whatever. The true light intensity, or the true light that you get through a lens, is called a T-stop. That's what videographers use. And it looks to me like the T-stop is much better than what we're getting on the Sony lens. So I just wanted to share that with you. So that's another interesting statement. Now, let me show you, before we go into questions, there's a couple of other things I want to talk to you. Is this loss of... Oh, let me also show this too, because I thought I'd show you the macro side to this. There's two things here as well. The macro was... I might even open up Lightroom. Let me open up Lightroom, because it might be quicker for me to show you in Lightroom. Where are we? Let me just quit that video. Let me open up Lightroom. Did I rate those images? Oh, I didn't. Nope. All right, let me take filters off. Because I want to show you the macro side to this lens, because it's pretty cool. Where did I do that? Down here. All right, so if we look at these, you can see up the top, up here, this is 1/125th of a second. Can we give, Kerry, say another 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. This is looking at... So, Kerry, I'm just talking to Kerry because we want to do the competition. So we'll make it quarter past.
Give a time, and
All right, quarter past.
Quarter past.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So here we're looking at this is the 70-200 f4 version. Now next to it is the this is the oh no, I've done two different focal lengths. That's the I'll bring both up so you can see them together. I think might be easier. Let me go here. On this side, on the left side here, we have the 70-200 f4. On the right side, we have the 70-180 Tamron. So this is the closest focal distance. Now, I believe in the Tamron you can go even closer, but you have to do manual focus. But I wanted to keep it so it was fair. So both had AF. So they were both using your AF without going into manual. But this shows the magnification difference that you can get at the closest focal distance. If we went to the maximum, well, the most we could go on the Tamron was 180. So if I went to here and showed the second one, again, you can see the magnification difference that you can get from the Tamron as against the Sony. It really does almost start to get into like a reasonable macro sort of realm. So that was an interesting thing that I wanted to share with you as well. That is very, very important to understand. Out of focus area, I just wanted to show this because this was showing it at 2.8. You can see here, which is nice. You can see the lovely blown out background. If we wanted to go to f5.6, you can see the detail that this lens actually has. Let me just blow this up and you can see the detail that this lens has got. No fringing. I mean, there's no fringing at all I can find in this lens at all. And I showed that, in fact, by some of these leaf shots that I did. Was the Tamron was incredibly sharp up in the leaf areas through here. I think that was one of the early ones, actually. Where was the ones that I used? Not sure where I put them. See, some are out of focus because some were different lenses. This was a 70-200 G. That was my 70-200 f4, and you can sort of see that it's still showing detail, but it's nowhere near as sharp as what the Tamron was showing. I'm just trying to see what other ones I had there. Oh, there you go. That was the one there. You can see the difference there of how sharp that one is as against, say, the other one, which I've got to try and find now. I don't know if I'll find it, but I'll try. I think was that the G? Yeah, that was the G there. You can see here it's just not as sharp. It's just nowhere near as sharp. Let me also show you now the difference in size or in losing the 20mm. So let's have a look at that. So I've got to find the two images. 70-200, that's 200mm. I think I did one at, did I do one at, oh yeah, I did. All right, so this image here is the 70-200 f4. Now let me just see if I can find, I'll just put a 1 on that one. Let me see if I can find where the 180 is. That's it there. All right, so let me go there and there. And put both of these up. I had a better example. I know it still shows it, doesn't it? All right, so this will give you an idea. I think I used two different examples because I changed them, I think. Let me check down here. Yeah, I think it was this one that I showed, actually. Let me just go back to develop, see if I can find my images. So that's the 70-180. I've just got to find the 70-200. I think it was these two. It was that one and this one, I think. Let me check that. I tried to make sure they showed the exact same spot. Yep, that was the one. All right, so this was the one that I showed. So if you're looking at this, you're looking at, on the right-hand side is the Tamron. Left-hand side, sorry, is the Tamron. The right-hand side is the 70-200. So this is the exact difference you will get with losing the 20mm. Now you can see, if you look over here, that you've got a slight gap that's there that now has gone on the one on the right-hand side, the Tamron. And if you look at the sign, you can see that you've got CO8. So you've lost that C8O on that side. So you're losing about 10%. If you look at it on either side. Now that to me, and we had an interesting conversation about this the other day, I could probably have stepped in one big step and it almost probably would have matched perfectly. But someone said, well, what if you're on a cliff where you can't step in? And I understand that, but you could crop. That is a minimal crop to get that same focal length. So to me, I can only talk about this from a personal perspective, that it wouldn't bother me at all. I mean, I'm not worried about losing that much of a gap between 180 and 200. So I just wanted to show that to you. Detail, I just wanted to show you this on this. This was an edited image. So just to show you the detail that the Tamron is giving, it's really quite astounding, really, if you look at it. I'm not sure whether this will show through YouTube, but the detail that I'm getting, and this was using the A9 guys. So if I used the A7R4 or something like that, but the detail would be incredible that you would get from this. But that gives you an idea about the detail that I'm getting at 180. So I actually shot this at its maximum, which is 180 millimeter. So it's incredibly sharp all the way through, and I can only really show you, what I've got there to give you an idea. So let me just quit Lightroom so I'll get that out of the way. Quit Lightroom, yes. Because I want to open up the chat. I want to open up the chat just to talk about that, to ask if anyone has any questions about what I've showed from my perspective. And then I wanted to talk to you about how it relates to the Sony GM, because there's, like I said, there's been some great tests done on that in the last day or so. So let me just come back to the chat. So if you have any questions that you want me to answer from my perspective about how I found it or what I thought about it, ask away, and then I can answer that. And then, like I said, we go on to that next discussion to talk about that. Let me just see where we were. Yep, we were talking about the 135, and I definitely would use the 135 if I was doing portraits all day. I mean, look, it still has to be tested. I will test it when I get the lens back, and I'll show you a direct comparison between the GM 135 against the 70 to 180, and I'll give you the test and show you what it does, because that would be a really interesting test to do. And let me just show, the other thing too I should have showed that as well. It's fast focusing. Let me just show you that quickly before we move on, because I forgot to show you guys that. Where are we? Let me open up this, because I forgot to show you the running part where Kerry ran. So I'll do it on this one so it's a bit easier to see. Because again, I didn't want to use the tracking. I could have used the tracking and it would have been even better on the A9. But I wanted to keep it, like I said, I was using the A9 to film and stuff, and I wanted to keep it so you get an idea too about how the A7 III would work. With the running, you can see here that, I'll show you Kerry now, she was running pretty quick. Now, I should have filmed this, but I didn't, because it was getting really dark at the end of the day. But she was running fairly fast towards me, and I'll just show you, it does keep it in focus the whole time that we're running through. So I'm just showing this through the stills. And like I said, she was running pretty quick, and it kept the focus the whole time the way and I was moving the camera, like I'd actually be moving the camera, not here, but you'll see the second she starts to get a bit closer, I then start to move the camera as well to try and follow Kerry coming through the side of me. So this happened in 2 seconds, 3 seconds, because she, like I said, she was running pretty quick. I was shooting at the 10 frames per second on the A7 III. So, and I got all the frames. And I think out of all the ones that I did, only one image out of the whole lot was a little bit soft. It wasn't out of focus, but it was a little bit soft. Every single one of them was in focus. So that's just an important thing to mention, that, I was so happy with how that focus went. Let me just move that back over. Cameron said, amazing AF, thanks David. This lens will most likely replace my Sony 24-240, and hopefully I'll pair it with the 200-600 soon. That's amazing. The 200-600 is great. Hogwarts said, I bought it for that reason exactly. It will fill the gap between my 24-105 and the 200-600. Yep. Nivak said, Dustin Abbott's reviews are always fantastic. Yet they always are very thorough. Langston said, very interesting. Cameron said, I personally like small lightweight primes for my wider focal length, so I have the 28 f2, that's a great lens, and the 55 1.8. I love the 55. I'll never sell that lens. I love it. I think the mannequin, particularly one without eyelashes, is not an ideal subject for lens optical characteristic tests. Something with greater chrominance and luminance contrast would work better. Yeah, but you could see it even in the background, Leo. There's no altering the fact that it had nothing to do with eyelashes. This was just showing you T-stop. it was showing that there's more light coming in off everything, and that was the wall and everything. So there's no denying that whatever I shot it was brighter with the Tamron than what it was with the Sony lens. So it had nothing to do with what was in the image. It was the whole image was lighter, and you could see the actual, like I said, the histogram shifting dramatically. Yeah, I agree, Jared. It was perfect for showing that. That's all that you had to do was just show that. It was just showing T-stop. What else? I also wanted to show it too to make sure that you understood that it was 180 that we was giving. People were asking me, is it really a 180mm lens? Well, it's exactly the same as my f4 version. So, oh, did I miss something up there? No. Jeff said, David Oastler, I love you, bro, but this is beginning to sound like a Tamron YouTube ad with no skip button. Jeff, I said at the beginning that's what this was going to be about. So if it doesn't interest you on this live, you're better off to just turn off, mate, because this is what this one's about. That's right, Langston, I did say that. What else have we got? Guy with the camera said, with the sharpness issues with the GM, is it... Oops. Where were we? I think it's just gone. Oh, I've lost it. I don't know where that went to. I'm not sure. It's disappeared. Rick said the 20mm is not as significant as I thought. No, it's not. It's not much at all, is it? When you look at the images, it's not a great deal. It sounds like a lot, but when you actually look at the images, it's not too much at all. Carol said, do you know what's the weight difference between the Sony, the f4 and the Tamron? I can't remember, but it was about 50 grams difference. It was lighter. I might be able to find that in the specs that come up in a minute, Carol, when I'm talking about all the lenses. So stay tuned for that. The topic is also the Tamron 7180, so there might be that too. Yeah, well, I put the topic down. Yeah. The sharpness issue with the GM. Oh, there it is. Is it possible you can crop to match without noticeable degradation? Maybe. Yeah, it could be. But look, I'm not saying that the GM's not sharp. It is. And I'll talk to you about that against the GM 2.8. Remember, I was doing all my tests against the f4 version, but I did notice the f4 version was quite a bit different than the Tamron. The Tamron was much sharper than that. The GM would be better. The GM would definitely be better than what the Tamron is, than what the 70-200 f4 is. Maximum frames per second will be 15 with the Tamron. Yeah, it's not rated at 20. You've got to have a Sony lens for that. What else have we got? Was there any lens creep? Didn't notice any, George. No. How did the 7180 weight feel in comparison to the 2875? Not that much worse, actually. Who's that calling me? Not that much worse at all. Not that much heavier at all. No, it is heavier. But Kerry, when she picked it up, actually said to me, "Wow, that's really a good lens. Nice and light." That's my daughter's ringing me. People will read the title, see the thumbnail, hear you say this is a topic, and still complain about the video. That's what Amir said. I love it. It's the internet. If it didn't happen, I would think it was a simulation. Okay, so that's that part to it. So now let's move on. Now remember, guys, if you're not interested in Tamron lenses or whatever, switch off. That's all I can say, because this is going to be a real one today, talking about this lens difference. Now I wanted to talk to you about today about some other reviews that have come out showing the G Master as compared against it. And this other one that I saw on SLR Lounge was really good. I think it was actually originally in, not SLR Lounge, it was actually in Sona Alpha blog, and it's by Mark. I think it's Mark Al Hadef. I think his name is from Sony Alpha blog. So I will share this down because Mark has done an incredible amount of work on this, and it's really, really detailed. And I'll put the link down to this whole article so you can read this afterwards if you like. But to show you a couple of things here, let me just bring this down. And I wanted to show you just first of all some breakdowns about what he believes, and then I'll go into his article and show you a couple of interesting things that I thought are quite interesting compared to the two of them. He said that the Tamron 70-180 is an excellent lens proposed at a very reasonable price. It competes perfectly with the 2.0. Completes, I suppose, perfectly the two other Tamron lenses, and that's what I found. If you have the 17-28 and the 28-75, it does compete perfectly with those. Indeed, it supports perfectly the 61 megapixels of the A7R4, whereas the other two zooms were showing their limits on the A7R4. Now, that was an interesting comment that he made there, because I haven't found that when I used the A7R4. I found the 17 to 28 and the 28 to 75 were amazing on that camera. But anyway, that's interesting. He said that. So what he's saying there, though, is that the 70-180 is the better of the three lenses. And I do believe that, because I think that's what my findings have shown as well. He said, but to achieve the performance at this price and reduce size and weight, Tamron had to make some choices. And the choices are 180mm instead of 200. No optical stabilization, and I'll talk about these in a minute. Lens extends when zooming. No fancy buttons on the barrel. No tripod foot, but you don't need it considering the weight, and that is exactly what I found as well. I just didn't need it, and not compatible with the Sony tele converters. So there's a couple of interesting things there that if you look. This is a typical GM lens if you look at them. They have the buttons for focus. You'll have your wheel that you can declick or whatever for your focus and aperture, things like that. You'll always have switches on as well. If we looked at the 70 to 200 mil, it's got focus limiters on there and all these other things. So you are missing a lot as compared to the Tamron, which just gives you a bare lens without any features on it apart from a lock button, which is on the side on the 70-180. So you do miss a lot, but you're getting substantial savings. So that's one thing you have to consider about that. So it's interesting that the grip that they're talking about, I'll just grab my 70 f4. Hang on a sec. I can't grab it, it's locked away. The handle underneath is good on a big lens like the GM because you can take the weight off the camera body. With these lenses being so light, you don't feel the need that you do need that handle at the bottom. So I don't think it's really much of an issue in the Tamron type of lenses. Let me just come back here. Optical stabilization definitely is a factor if you're trying to handhold for video. In lens stabilization, sometimes can be more important than the camera stabilization, particularly for video. So if you are going to do handheld video, lens stabilization is a bigger factor than IBIS in the camera. It just seems to have more room to move. Remember, if you're dealing with your IBIS in your camera, that the sensor can only move so far. You have much more room to move in the lens. So lens stabilization is actually incredible. You've only got to look at, say, what Nikon could produce and other cameras, the digital SLRs, with just the lens stabilization is actually quite outstanding in a lot of cases. Luckily, Sony will, if you have, say, a new camera like an A7 III or an A7R or whatever, they will use in-body stabilization as well as lens stabilization. So there is stabilization in your camera, but it's not as good as having stabilization in the lens as well. So you have to take that into account. And when I shot with it, I would just up my shutter speed a little bit to compensate for that. If you up your shutter speed, you will get a better result than if you lower the shutter speed down. So you do have to be careful about that. Now, we've got to stop for a second because I'm going to draw a winner out of a hat. Now, I'll just explain what this is. Let me just bring up this page. Jerry kindly, a little bit ago, on the 19th of March, he's doing a competition where he's announcing an upcoming free giveaway of 2 used but in near new condition Flashpoint flashes with the batteries. They're the Godox V860Ss. So he's got 2 of these that he's going to give away, and also an adapter and the diffuser. Now, what the competition was, we had the competition where they had to post an image in on the photography videography school. You can see this is our site that we have up the top up here. So people had to submit a photo in the group. So
In that.
yeah, so they had to post it under that giveaway. Now, we decided, Jerry and myself decided that we wouldn't do it based on votes or anything else. We were just going to pick it out at complete random. So Kerry has printed off the names of everyone that's submitted into the competition.
There was 11.
And so what we're going to do now is we're going to draw it out of a hat.
So is it
No,
two
it's
people
no,
or just one
just
person?
just one person gets them. So what we're going to do, and Jerry has even offered to pay for the shipping as long as it's in the USA. If it is outside, it said USA or Canada. If it's international, so if it is an international person has done it, you would have to pay for your own shipping. Oastler will pick the winners at random. Anyone
it's
can
supposed
enter
to
the
be
flash.
2.
Is it 2? There will be 2 sets. Oh, there is 2 sets.
sets,
Yeah, so
yeah.
we're going to call 2 names. Okay. So we're going to do 2 names. Jerry has offered to pay for shipping if it's in the US and Canada. If it's international, you are going to have to pay for your own shipping. So if you don't want it, then you would obviously have to contact us, and then we'll grab another name out of the hat.
We'll wait a week, maybe
Yeah,
next
we'll wait a
week.
week, and then we'll call another name out or something like that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to drag the name out of the hat. So here we go, shaking it.
So 11 names in there.
And they're going to get a Godox flash. So the first name, Clinton Lum. Oh, can we get it? Is it going to go? So Clinton Lum is the first one. So Clinton, congratulations. You, if you are local in the US, you're going to get one of these, or Canada, you're going to get one of these shipped to you. Let's grab another one. The next person that has won is, I think it's Reg Wakasgrade. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. So it's Reg Wakasgrade. So what we'll do now, so congratulations, guys.
Photos on there?
No, that's okay. So what Kerry will do now, she'll put a comment in the... Yeah, she'll keep that just in case if someone is not local and they can't pay for it international. Kerry will put in the group now, congratulations to the winners. So just comment on there who the winners are.
Oh, yeah, yep.
And can the 2 winners contact Jerry, please? Jerry obviously is in the group.
Personal
He is,
message.
yeah, if you can message Jerry, and Jerry will obviously organise that for you. So thank you so much, Jerry, for that competition. That's amazing. You're going to get 2 really good flashes, 1 each. Just contact Jerry and you can organise shipping. Thanks, guys. Okay,
Bye.
thanks, honey. All right, so let's go back to this article. Where were we? Let me just get rid of the photography videography school. Now, I wanted to talk about a couple of other things that he mentioned too. The pros, excellent sharpness across the entire field. That's exactly what I found. I found it very good from the center, and there's charts that I'm going to bring up in a minute, and I'll show you all about this. There's charts for showing how sharp this is in different focal lengths. It's great what he's done. And it's also quite sharp on the edges. Very small and light, reasonable price. Very good bokeh and soft background blue, and I showed you the images, and I agree with that. I think they are very, very good. Extremely fast, silent, and accurate AF. I could not hear the AF working at all. It is dead silent, so it would be fantastic for video. Very low level of chromatic aberrations. In fact, I couldn't even see them, but that's the way I shoot and the things that I shot. I could not see chromatic aberrations at all. Moderate vignetting, that's one I forgot to do, and I was upset I forgot to do that. I should have showed that against the white wall I had there. But it's not that I noticed any in the images. I do often like to show things like in real life. And the image that I showed you with Kerry and everything else I didn't notice vignetting at all, but it's obviously is there if he's saying moderate vignetting, and I'll show you that in one of his slides in a minute. Very good flare resistance and fully weather sealed. Now the average that he said about the Tamron was color rendition a little bit yellowish. I found the color really nice, but we all see things differently. No, not compatible with the teleconverters, and that's the 1.4 or the 2 teleconverter. That doesn't surprise me at all. No buttons to switch to manual focus, to set custom function, to limit focus range at all, and no optical stabilization, and I discussed that as well. But there's some cons as well that I didn't notice that much, but he's showed it, and it's interesting. But remember, I shoot differently. I'm not shooting to show those sort of things really, whereas he has, and I'll show you the results. But he said that there's huge distortion between 135 and 180. Now, that will be fixed when a lens profile comes out, but he said in his document, he said it took a long time for them to get a lens profile for the 17 to 28, but it did come out eventually. But he said there's really bad distortion or huge distortion. I didn't notice it in my images I was using, but I wasn't shooting things that were really showing that, apart from the brick wall, and even that didn't really show that to me, but his tests have showed that anyway. Lens does extend when zooming, and the zoom ring is quite dampened, so no smooth zooming possible in video. That's not an issue for me because I never zoom in videos anyway. I think that looks horrible to zoom in on a video. I would zoom, I would stop filming, zoom, and then start filming again. But if you did want to do a zoom, it's quite dampened. Does not look pro if you're a wedding photographer. I don't believe that part, but anyway. He said the second part down here was the Tamron delivers similar performance to the Sony 70-200 GM. So it's similar performance to the GM in most cases, and even surpasses it sometimes corner sharpness and sharpness at 180. I showed you a 180 millimeter image a minute ago down the Avenue of Honor where I live, and it is incredibly sharp. And portability is also one at half the price, a superb performance. So now let me show you some things that he's put, because his article is really in depth. So let me scroll to a couple of things that they're showing. This is great because it shows, I might have to make this a bit smaller actually. Let me just reduce this down. This shows the barrel extended. This shows it when it's completely down. And I wanted to find Carol. Hopefully, Carol, later I can show the difference in the weight difference, because I think it was mentioned somewhere down here. Now, this is what I wanted to show you. The optical performance of this lens. I wanted to discuss this with you. It shows here that he's done 3 tests. It's 70mm, 135, and 180. And I'll bring this up again later because there's another one where it also shows against the 70-200 f4 as well. But this is against just the G Master. At this, the center, he's saying is excellent at 70mm at 2.8 and very, very good in the corners. That is this comparing the two, or is it? No, this is only the Tamron. I need to bring up both where it shows it. Let me come down and I'll show you both together because he compares both lenses. Sorry about scrolling down like this, guys. I'm going to make everyone sick. Let me just switch off this for a minute just while I find it for you, so I don't make everyone want to vomit. Where was it? Because he showed in the tests, he actually showed... Oh, the weight, Carol, if you were interested to know, against the GM, it's... Yeah, but it's only giving it against the 2.8. Is 890 grams versus 1,706 grams on the GM. It doesn't mention against the F4 version, though. Someone mentioned that the other day, though. It was a little bit lighter. Here we go. All right, let me bring this up. All right, so there's 3 tests in here. The top one here is the 70 to 180. Let me see if I can make this a bit bigger just so that you can see it. Oh. And let me move it over a bit. Let me just move it up. All right. So this test was really quite good because he's done the 70 to 180 and he's measured it from the 70 to 135 and the 180. He's also done the 70 to 200 2.8 and the 70 to 200 f4. And if you look at it, he's color-coded this. So the green is very good. The light blue is excellent. And the dark blue is outstanding. And if you look at the overall range, it looks to me that the Tamron is really amazing. If you think that it's outstanding in a number of areas, it's actually outstanding in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 areas, whereas the Sony GM is only outstanding in 1. And the Sony FE is also only outstanding in 1. If we looked at excellence, it seems to be that it's a similar amount. But it looks like, if you're talking about it, that the only area where it was saying it was soft was the Sony 70 to 200 at f4 was average. And I found that was the same too, that when I looked at those image results at f4, remember the one of the leaves that I showed you? It definitely showed that it was a little bit soft at the f4, as against when I put f4 on the 180, the 70 to 180, it was incredibly sharp. So my findings have backed this up completely. But it's saying overall that the results of this Tamron 70 to 180 are just incredible for the price range that they're actually showing. So that was one thing that I wanted to show. And like I said, I'll put these links down below. And there was a couple of other things that I wanted to discuss in here as well. What else was there? Sorry about flicking through. Bokeh, I wanted to discuss with you. He did say that the bokeh was slightly nicer in the G Master than the Tamron. And he showed 2 examples here of looking at the rendering. What did he say about the rendering? I've just got to see. The background blur is very soft and pleasant, though, he's saying. The bokeh balls are very good wide open. A little bit of ovals on the side, like the usual for these kind of optics. They stay circular when closed down. The color rendition is good, but a little bit yellowish and less neutral than the Sony lens. So he's saying the bokeh actually is pretty good. So that's an interesting test that you can have a look at too if you want to check this document out as well. Was there anything else that I wanted to discuss from this with you? I don't think there was. I think that was about it. That was a difference in size between the two. Let me just make this smaller so you can see it. Where were we? No, it's back here, I think. Sorry, guys, about having to scroll through both of these. It was down. Just wanted to show the difference between the GM and the Tamron lens side by side, just so that you get an idea about the size. Oh, it takes forever to go through all these images. Like I said, it's a great thing if you want to actually see how it is. Where were we? Oh, here we go. Oh, I don't know, I've lost it. It did have a really good comparison between the two of them. I don't know where it's gone. It was there, but you could see it was definitely a lot smaller than what the GM was. So what I want to do is I'm going to share that article underneath as well, so you can have a look to see if you think does it meet your needs. There's a couple of things. Like I said, if you need the buttons, obviously you can't go past the Sony. If you're looking at sharpness, I think you're going to find that the Tamron overall is sharper. And they were saying that there was one point, I think, where the GM was sharper at one of the focal ranges. I can't remember what it was sharper than what the Tamron was, but the Tamron was sharper on the edges. As soon as you started to stop down a little bit, the Tamron became sharper overall. So that's something interesting. But in comparison, they're both very, very close, I think, if you're dealing with overall sharpness. Price-wise, it's way different because it's way cheaper than what you would be for the GM version. If you need the teleconverters, you have to go for the Sony lenses. If you want that 1.4 extender, if you want the 2x extender, you've got to go for the GM lenses. And if you need the 200mm, well then obviously you need to go for the GM lenses, or when Sigma release a 2.8 version on that as well. So I know today's been very detailed. It's 2 stories I'm going to share that aren't related to this in a minute. But I just want to go back to the chat to see what people are saying, if anything is coming up about this. Let me just make this larger again. Let me bring that over. Let me just check this for the next story. Excuse me. All right, so let me just check on the chat to see what people are saying. Oh no, he shot brick walls. Now he's shooting white walls. I love it, Hero said. Tammy Ambassador now, Mark said no. No, I'm not a Tammy Ambassador, Mark. Laugh out loud. So one of those wraps on it makes it look white. Put a wrap on it, you're saying, makes it look white. I love Photomix says, doesn't look pro. Oh, wait, oh no, nah, that lost all credibility. Yeah, look, I don't agree. That's one statement I don't agree with. I think that is just a complete nonsense. Like I said with Aaron the other day in my live show, I've never ever had one client say to me about anything about the gear I use, to be honest. And look, Nikon cameras lenses are all black. How would they know? I mean, people don't just use Canon. They use Nikon and other lenses where the lenses are black. I just think that's a bit of a silly statement. But the rest of the stuff, like I said, is very, very detailed. Tim said, don't understand who doesn't look pro. What makes it look pro? White color. What if you put a Sony 24GM on, it's black, and you're no longer looking pro? Yeah, this is why I say I don't believe in that. Let's keep going down. Ike said, first of all, you show up with anything less than a 1D or a D5, you've lost the pro badge. So everyone dump you on small mirror cams, not pro looking enough. Yeah, well, yeah, I've never had that happen. Only Uncle Bob has said that to me. A bride or client has never said it to me. I don't even think the body matters, just as long as it's a white lens will do. I love it. Silent shutters are for creepers, of course. They are weeded out. Is that French guy doing a review again? I'm not sure. Well, I did a live on a submarine, run silent and all. I'm not sure what that's going on about. Some people confuse status with quality. What else have we got? That's real generous of you, though, Gerald. Oh, talking about the competition. Yeah, thanks so much, Gerald. Gerald says, yes, the Tamron is sharper than the GM, just a reality of newer lens designs. Great performance, especially at that price. Nobody ever hired me because of my paint job on my lens. You can tell people have been cooped out, getting gnarly. I love it. 10% loss of focal length, 44% weight savings, 54% cost savings compared to the GM. Good point. Tammy does make teleconverters. Well, I'm not sure, Langston. They may make teleconverters for their digital lenses. I'm not sure. The digital SLR lenses. I'm not sure. Carl said, over the past year or so, each new lens is better than what came out before. Yeah, well, true, they are making advancements, that's for sure. I wonder the process really getting that much better at Tamron between each lens. Well, they probably are getting better, Langston, particularly at the... look, their 70 to 200 G lens is incredible. That is an unbelievable lens. So obviously in the digital SLR realm, they've had some amazing lens, but they've been producing those a lot longer. They are still only new in the mirrorless realm. So, basis on all the comparisons I've got today, the Sonys are overpriced. I thought the doesn't look pro comment was because of the size as much as the colour. Never had a client ask which camera. I'm the same. I never have either. All the paint at Bunnings is sold out, so I can't get my white lenses. I love it. All right, let's go on to the first story today, guys, that's not related to Tamron. A couple of people are telling me off. What are we on? We're probably a long show, isn't it, today? 1 hour 39, yeah. 1:39:46. All right, so let's have a look at this. Let me just bring this over. Now, this is the first one that I wanted to show up today. Let me just make this a little bit larger. Oop. All right, so Sony made an announcement last night, I believe, that they were going to release a new firmware update for the A9 II. And this is really interesting because this is version 2, but I'll explain what's in it first, and then we can have a discussion about it. But it says the benefits that they've added the high-frequency flicker button function. Now, I know that's in the A7R4. I can't remember if it's in anything else in the A7R4. Someone in the live chat may be able to... I love Jimmy's put Tamron 780-180, kidding. I'd love someone to mention if it's in any other cameras. I don't think it is. The only one I've seen it in that anti-flicker is the A7R4, I think. I can't remember if it's in my A6000 series. It might be. But they've added that anti-flicker frequency now into the A9, which allows you to reduce the impact of flickering of artificial light sources. Digital signage, electronic signage boards, LEDs as well. And you can get the flicking. What it means is if you've got LED lights, you can get a flicking that comes on, particularly it can wreck videos and stuff. Now, I think that would work in video, but I'm being honest with you guys, I've never used it, so I don't know how it works or what. So, but all I know now is that it's been put in because I've never really had a problem. I tend to just alter my shutter speed and stuff until the flickering disappears. So I don't really have an issue with it, but it's now in there as well. They're just saying it also improves the face eye priority in the AF function, and that's talking about when custom keys are used and things like that. So there's an improvement in face IAF, and there's also improves the camera remote camera tool as well as being upgraded as well. But there's one other thing that they've added as well in the firmware, in that what it does, you can have it as a setting so that it closes the shutter when the camera's been turned off. So if you've turned the camera off, you can close the shutter, therefore your shutter's not exposed to any elements or dust falling in. Canon have that, for instance. But the funny thing is that Canon, I believe, have got rid of that in their latest cameras. Now, I don't know whether they've found that that's a problem, but I think Leicas have always had that. I could be wrong. Someone might be able to let me know in the chat whether that's true or not. But some people in the chat have sort of... I was reading the chats about this, saying that some were worried that it might affect like, what if you got dust that gets stuck inside the shutter and then that wrecks your shutter and things like that. So I don't know. I'd love to know your opinion about this. Do you believe this is something you'd like to see? Because and I don't know whether this is going to be true. I'd be surprised if they bring this down into the other cameras, but who knows? They might. Clearly, it's just a firmware update. But it might be only available on the latest shutters. Like, it might only be available on, say, the A7R4 and the A9 due to the fact that they're newer shutters. But it's only a firmware, so you would think they'd add this to the A7R4, for instance. But would you like this in your, say, the A7 III, the A7R3? Do you think it's a useful tool? I'm not sure whether I would even use it because, to be completely honest, I just use the rocket blower and I never have a dust problem. I don't know if I'd be totally comfortable closing it where the thing, your shutter is, would close down, and if something, dust or whatever, did get stuck in there, is that going to have an issue with the shutter locking or something like that over a long period of time? And I'd love to know your opinion about that. Because I'm not certain that I'd have it, but I do believe you're able to turn it on and off. So if you do want to have it on, you could. And if you wanted to, say, leave it as it is now, you could just switch it off so it doesn't activate. So at least it's there. But let me know in the chat whether you'd like that added into your other cameras. Next story. Boy, it's windy today. I can hear it outside. Next story is this one, which is SLR Lounge has put this, I mean, here we go again. SLR Lounge has put this thing on talking about, is Sony E Mount too small? Let's put the debate out of its misery. And they're talking about it again. There's a whole article. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But they're talking about again that is the Sony mount compromised due to the fact that the mount is the size that it is. And what they're saying is, I think they're, in fact, if you read the article, they're not saying it's really got an effect. But in one spot, they're talking about sharpness and saying that it may affect the sharpness over the whole sensor. Due to the fact that it's smaller, they're saying it may lose or impact sharpness on the outside of the sensor as against the center of the sensor due to the light can't reach over the whole sensor. I'm not sure if that's true, and I'm going to come back to the Q&A in a minute, but I don't think it has I really don't think it matters at all. Remember, they're dealing with the difference of the size of, say, the Nikon Z series and the Canon the R series that's out, the EOS Rs, that have a much larger sensor size. I think we're going to be proven shortly that Sony will probably release a 1.2 lens, and that will shut basically everyone up that's going to have this argument. I mean, there are already 1.2 lenses, but they're manual focus lenses. But let's see what people would say below. I'd love to know, do you think that there's an issue? I think Sony made the right choice in the fact that you can use the same lenses on the APS-C cameras as well as you can use on your full frame cameras. So to me, that's probably more important than having a lens mount that's bigger that then compromises being able to use other lenses that are out there. Go with the cameras. Oh no, they're talking about the sensor. I'll come back to the chat in a minute, and you may want to chime in about this, but I don't think it's an issue at all, to be completely honest. I've never ever taken shots with the lenses like that I've got, like the 135, like the Tamron lenses that I use, my 24 GM. I've never looked at that, and the GM is 1.4. I've never looked at it and thought, wow, I'd like the edges to be sharper than what they are or whatever. I don't know. I just don't think it's a big story anymore. But it keeps popping up and causing big arguments. So I just wanted to have a discussion with you about that, and let me know in the chat below too what you think about that as well, because it's just interesting. All right, so let's go to the Q&A. We might cop 2 hours today. 1:47:20. So let's go to Q&A and just see what people are saying. Ike said the Sonys aren't overpriced because you got to remember you get extra features like the manual focus switch, big deal. And you do pay for those extra features. If you need them, well, you need to go Sony. It's really a choice you have to make. Langston says he does love the switches. I mean, I do love the declickable aperture. I mean, I love that in the the 24 and also the 135. If you're doing video, it's beautiful to be able to smoothly change your aperture. That is a really nice feature. I'd love to know, a lot of you may use the your programmable buttons, but I don't use. I've got them programmed like for IAF, but I don't know what it is. It might be just me, but I always forget they're there, and I still use, because it's programmed for all the other lenses that I have, that I don't have that IAF button, that I still just use my AEL button on the back. Or my focus, other buttons, and I'm programmed to doing that, so I forget about the programmable buttons on the lens. I don't know. It's just the way that I am. So losing the buttons for me doesn't matter that much. But I do love that declickable aperture ring. I love that aspect of it. Photomix said, exactly, Lanston, if I paid an extra $1,400, you better at least give me 2 switches minimum. I love it. Due to the inconsistency of the switches, I don't use them at all. So many lenses don't have switches and buttons, so I program all the stuff. Yeah, and that's exactly what I just said, that due to the fact that I have lenses without them and lenses not with them, so I can work quickly and efficiently all the time, I use the buttons on my camera, because then I know no matter how or whatever lens I'm using, I won't miss something that I want to do. But that's the way that I work. Others, I'm sure, would use those programmable buttons all the time. Guy with the camera said, dust on the shutter goes right back in the chamber. Yeah, and that's an interesting thing as well. Yeah, I don't know about it. I'm not sure. Dwayne, g'day Dwayne, how are you? Photomix says, haven't Sony users been having issues with those flimsy shutters? I did hear rumours about the A7 III were having some issues, Ike, but look, you've got to take everything like that and whether you believe it or not, because unfortunately all of the, like if you go into the user groups and things like that, they're full of people that are having issues. So out of, Sony, I don't know how many A7 IIIs that they've sold, but Sony may have sold, I'm just going to pull a number out of a hat, all right? Sony, say, may have sold 2 million A7 IIIs. Out of that, they might have replaced 200 shutters. But every one of those people that have replaced the shutters are in those news groups whinging about Sony having an issue. I'm not sure you can ever believe what you see in news groups because it's usually a very, very small sample. So I'm not sure if the A7 III has a shutter problem at all. I've certainly never had a problem myself. Let me know if anyone in the chat has. I mean, I'm just curious to know, these things can get totally beaten out of perspective. And that's where you've got to be careful. Mark said, A7 III owners are being overlooked right now in regards to firmware updates. Yeah, they haven't done a really good one for a while. Like, why haven't they given us that change of colour, Mark? I agree with you. That should have, when that went to the A9, it should have gone to the A7 III as well. Langston said, depends on how the shutter mechanism is really built. Guy with the camera says the grey AF selector. Yeah, that's certainly something that people would love to be able to change like you can with the A9 now. Photomix says, the A7 III owners already got a lot of camera for the money. What more do you want? They did it. I mean, it was a great value camera, that's for sure. Joe says, yes, very strong wind here in Lilydale. Yeah, it's strong out here. I can hear it outside now. Where were we? Mark said, I am not an A7 III owner, but I know there is a grey box issue. Yeah, you're talking about the focus issue. Photomix said, why is this still a topic? I don't know. It still keeps coming up, so I thought I might just talk about it. Sigma 35 1.2 is already here. Exactly. Yeah, and I always forget about that because I shouldn't, because it's an amazing lens. You're correct, AJ. That lens is brilliant. And I certainly would not think that is not sharp. It is incredibly sharp. So Sigma have already proven that you can do a 1.2. I just meant that Sony will do it soon too. I'll keep forgetting about that one for some reason. I don't know why. Tim said, the Sony issue is how wide the lens is and squashing your fingers between that and the grip. Guy with the camera said, the problem with the sensor mount has more to do with the small mount and short flange distance. That what Nikon F has had to deal with. Gerald says, the E Mount is used from APS-C to Venus cameras for major motion pictures like Avatar films, the most used mount in the world. Yeah, I agree, and that's the great benefit of doing it, isn't it? That the E Mount, you can switch from APS-C full frame to your Venice cameras and everything, and it's the same range the whole way across. George said, money, misery is right. Canon users are always worrying about Sony. Rick said, Nikon is a company that started that by saying that their mount is better. They did too, I remember that. I know you meant Venice, Jerry. Guy with the camera said, Leica's mount is technically worse off than the E mount. The Leica L mounts are superior quality though. Shane saying, hi Shane, how are you? Mark said, I can shoot 0.95 in Sony, so why is the opening too small? Yep, I agree. But those lenses, I haven't seen a 0.95 lens that's sharp yet though, Mark. But the Sigma 1.2 is. I mean, there may be a difference. Like, there might be a difference. And, like, why would you do this? But there could be a case for this argument if Nikon Z Mount brought out a 0.95 autofocus lens. Now that is going to be some ridiculous, massive, honking lens. But it may be possible technically, but why would you want to do that? I don't know. But the 0.95 lenses that are out at the moment aren't really sharp. They're sharp in the center, well, not bad, but they're not very sharp on the edges. But the Sigma 1.2 is sharp across the whole range. Carl said Zeiss designed the Optus lenses. Now, that was another rumor today too, that Zeiss may be going to bring out mirrorless lenses for their Optus lenses. So that could be incredible. Be prepared to pay for it though. PhotoMeX said, Rick, that's true, but the E Mount was originally built for APS-C. Sony Nex existed before the A7. Yep, that's true. It was designed for APS-C. Dwayne said, I had the AD400, but the reflector doesn't fit on the light. Bought a connector, but it still won't fit. Help. Can anyone help Dwayne out with that? Because I just don't know the Godox lenses, so someone else may be able to help Dwayne out with that. Pretty sure I could fit the AF selector color in the weekend. Not on an A7 III, you can't change the color, Langston. You can on the A9. Daniel, the A7 are for getting small RAWs. Oh, I wish that would come out. I agree with you, Daniel. That would be amazing. If I had the money at the moment, if the A7R4, I've still got to do that review. It is an amazing camera. I loved it. But the thing that would tip me over the edge with that is if they did a small RAW version. If they gave that, I would jump on that as soon as I could afford it. Because that is really the one downfall. The file sizes are just too big for me to use that as a general camera. But if you could shoot a small RAW, it would be amazing, because just think about it. You could shoot your maximum megapixels, your 60 odd megapixel file sizes, and then you could go down and shoot, say, 30 megapixels or something like that. It would be brilliant to have that option. I know people say you can shoot APS-C, but that's not the answer, because APS-C, you lose all the full frame advantages. So you're losing the ability, or the reason why you're using full frame glass on that camera. You're losing that depth of field. So that's something you have to consider. So I don't want the option of shooting APS-C. I want the option of shooting full frame, but having a small RAW, like what Canon do and stuff. That would be amazing. I so wish they'd do that, and I don't understand why they don't give us that option. What did Ike say? The Nikon F mount was originally for full frame mount for film, and then went to APS-C with digital, and then started to make full frame again with the D3. What else? Which is one of your pain points going to the Blackmagic and needing new lenses? Yeah, exactly, Langston, it is. Rick said, I want to think there is some truth to the Nikon allegation. If Sony were designing now with full frame in mind, the mount would have been bigger. Yeah, and you're right, Rick, that's true. It probably would. Dwayne said, love your channel, David. Thank you for what you do. You will outlast these product shells. Oh, thank you, Dwayne. Hero said, laugh out loud, the Noct is already 8,000. I know, that's the thing. I mean, who's going to have the money to buy them? If they made one with it, it would be $12,000. The Nikon 58 0.95 is so sharp it ain't fair. Wide open at 0.95. Yep. Fully understand that, Ike. But it's a manual focus lens, isn't it? Not as bad as those lenses Potato Jet was showing off. I don't know what that means. What else? Hey, David, did you hear that the Sony FX9 stabilizer software? No. No, I haven't. Canon has a 0.1 AF lens. It's not sharp, though. Yeah, I did read that ages ago, actually. APS-C, you lose light, too. Yes, you do. Exactly. That's a good comment, Phil. Dwayne, Gerald's answering Dwayne there. I won't read it because he's answering Dwayne. Jim said, Ike, do you have any evidence that shows you the Z mount is better than the F mount? What else have we got? Can we get along? I'm not sure. Is someone going crook in there, are they? I must have missed it. Dwayne said, Gerald, I'll send a picture. I have various brackets but not working. Okay, yeah, Gerald might be able to help you, Dwayne. One of the reasons I may not buy another Nikon digital SLR is because of how good the Z lenses are. Yeah, and I have heard they are amazing. I've used them in the shop and they were pretty good. But I haven't used them out in the field though, so I can't comment about that. And that's about it, guys. Look, it was a very, I can promise you the next show, the next Sony Live and Alpha show, we won't go over Tamron much at all. Now, that was just, I wanted to go through this as I just had it and to go, I'd had so many questions that I thought I could answer them in one live show. That's why I thought I'd do that today. The shows from now on will just go back to the usual ones of talking about more generic-y stuff. But I had to go through all that today because, like I said, I wanted to answer everyone's questions about everything that we've had, because I have had a lot of questions on that over the coming days, particularly about the GM 2.8, and I thought that other article would answer a lot of those questions as well. So please read all of those. If you have any questions, put those down below too, because I'd love to know if you have any questions as well. I have got some other reviews coming up in the coming days. Like I said, I've still got Ike's workshop I've got to put up. I've still got another shoot with two wonderful girls that I did when I was in the US that I've got to put up. And I've still got the Tamron 17-28 lens review to come up. I've still got my review of the ND filter that I used, that system that I used in the States. I've got that review coming out. I've got another monitor that's coming that I wanted to talk about because it's got very high light intensity that I should be able to use outside. So that's coming, and I've got that little Godox light too. So there is a lot of stuff that's coming out in the coming days. The other thing too is make sure you catch Aaron and myself next Tuesday, the US times. It's Wednesday, Australian time. For that, the Behind the Photo show. We have a lot of fun talking about that, and that's very generic. So please join us for that next week as well. And I will be back next week on the Friday, Thursday US time to talk about the usual Sony Alpha news and rumors, where we could go through a whole stack of stories. But in a way, it's probably good that we had the Tamron. Because of the virus at the moment, there's very little news around anyway. So, we probably wouldn't have had much to discuss anyway, and it might just have been a Q&A. But, anyway, it's given us 2 hours that we could chat alone. So let me just see what people are saying before we finish the day. Rick said, David, do you think that lenses are overpriced? I mean, I bought the top of the line refrigerator for $1,500 and that is tech. Well, no, probably not, Rick, because if you pull a lens apart, they are incredible, the technology that goes into those lenses. You're paying for R&D. You're paying for the lens part of those. The manufacturing of the lens has to be down to such critical tolerances to get really sharp images and things like that. So probably not. And remember, lenses should last you a lifetime, really, in effect, whereas the bodies, you almost change quite often. But lenses should last you a lifetime if you get a good one. What else have we got? Guy with camera saying goodbye. Join the group and promote the channel there. Yeah, make sure you join the photography videography school. I'll stick the link down below if you wanted to join that. Rick said, fantastic chat. I always leave these chats inspired. Rick said, thank you. Ontario said, David, what Tamron is doing with lenses reminds me of what Godox is doing with flashes. Yeah, it's probably true. Jim said, thanks for a great show, mate. Thanks, Kerry, for the cameos. MJ said, thanks. The photography videography school, I'll stick it in the link down below. You'll actually get that. Jim put the link there for you anyway, Phil. So please join that group as well. Stanley said, good day, sir. Mark said, going live on YouTube now, by the way. Hero said, laugh at that, you can take photos with your refrigerator. I know what they were talking about, though, and that's about it. Stay safe, everyone. Have a great Easter Sunday. I know it's only Saturday here in Australia, and it's Friday in other areas, but have a great Easter weekend, everyone, and I'll see you all in the next chat. And that's about it. Bye, everyone. Catch you all soon. Congratulations to the winners of those flashes as well.